Good morning or good afternoon. Is the mic on? Okay, great. Now, I just talked to freshmen, so I thought I'd use the same speech, if that's okay. Is that all right? No, it's really great for me to welcome you to Boise State University. I just started I came in July, so I'm just, for some of you who are new, I'm maybe a little newer than you. Raise your hand. How many of you are graduates, have another degree from Boise State University? Okay, not as many as I thought. All right, how many of you obviously have a degree, well, I hope you have a degree from somewhere else. Okay, great. How many of you have a degree from, I think there's some other universities in Idaho. How many of you have a degree from another university in Idaho? Okay. What about from out of state, obviously? I'll go down the west. I'm not going to go through all 49 states. How about Washington State? Any graduates from a school in Washington State? How about my home state of Oregon? Any of you? Good. I hope it was Oregon State. If you went to either Oregon or Oregon, it was not University of Oregon. How about California? Great. Anybody from the East Coast? Great. A little different over here. How about from another country? We're delighted to see you. And you know how challenging it is to travel today and so forth. So the international exchange, having international students on any American campus is really a rich and gratifying experience for our own students. I just want to speak to you for a few minutes. I know you've been listening to folks. But I wanted to let you know, and you have information about student affairs, and that covers a wide range of programs and services that you will probably use outside the classroom. Dining, for example, the rec center, which is a fabulous rec center. Connected to the rec center or right next to it is the bike learning center if you want to rent a bike. You're going to hear more about health services and counseling, which is a very, very critical service for students. And then also, if those of you who have questions about your scholarships and financial aid, if that's not handled in your particular department, the financial aid office is always available to advise and help you. I think what's important about a university like Boise State is we not only are focused on your success in the classroom, but it's also outside the classroom. And Boise State has, again, a wonderful array of programs and services. This is, for those of you who have never been to Idaho, this is just a fabulous outdoor recreation environment, and it's a great place to do a variety of things, especially if you've never skied or snowboarded or whitewater rafted or hiked around in just some wonderful trails. I was trying to think if there was anything insightful that I could share with you, and I was going through some articles and materials earlier, and I really wish there was one article that I was looking at, and it came from Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and it was What I Wish I Knew Before Graduate School. I went right from I was an English-French major as an undergrad and lived in France, and went right to undergrad, had a 3-week break before I started summer school in English literature at Northwestern University in Chicago. So I went from a small little campus of 1,600 to Chicago, which for a 21-year-old was a huge shock. And this was, pre-cell phone, pre-computer. We used typewriters. Do you know what a typewriter is? Yeah, we use those. And I spent more time typing than I did composing. But and then going on to doctoral work a little later. But I really wish I would have reflected more on why I'm in graduate school and how to get the best out of my graduate school experience. So I'm going to run through just about 7 or 8 very quick hints and not expound on them very long. But I think one of the most important things is, first of all, grad school is not undergrad 2.0. It is a different experience, and I had such a shock with this because I'd had a great time as an undergrad. I can't remember really any of my classes, but I had a great time outside the classroom. I did get a degree, but it was sort of a shift in my thinking in terms of the teaching, in terms of the expectations. Obviously, I was out of my comfort zone because I knew no one. So it's not going to be the same thing as undergrad. Similarly to from high school to undergrad, the undergrad was a completely different experience than your senior year in high school. Second, and this is, and I've taught enough graduate students both at the master's and PhD level. This is so critical. It's so easy to do, but not every graduate student does this. Keep up with the reading. The amount of reading that many of you will have in your grad programs is significant. And I'll tell you, once you get behind, it is so difficult to catch up. And of course, that affects the performance on a day-to-day basis in the classroom and the work that's expected of you. Third, and I never did this, and I still need to do this, create an organizational system that works for you. What works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. How do you best organize yourself? Everything from the technology piece to the personal piece. And that is so critical. Fourth is keep up with your citations and bibliography. And as an English major, that I was pretty good on that, but I could have been better. And by the time, particularly for those of you, if you're doing a master's thesis or if you're doing a dissertation, having kept up with all of that all the way along will serve you very well. The next piece of advice, and this really should have been the first piece of advice, is connect with your professors early. Your professors really want to get to know you. I mean, some of the best discussions I've had have been with my graduate students. A college freshman just doesn't have the same intellectual curiosity as a master's or doctoral student. I know that might be surprising, but it's amazing some of the great conversations you can have outside the classroom with your faculty members. Just tied into that too is connect with the your fellow graduate students in your program. You all come with different kinds of experiences which are very valuable for sharing. Some of you are here by yourself, some of you have partners, some of you have friends here, but that connection with your fellow graduate students can be really, really powerful from a support standpoint, both academic support and personal support. Another piece of advice is be visible, be around. The faculty in your department will know that. They'll know who's around and who's not around. It's not that you have to every morning go in and give someone a hug. Well, you don't do that with COVID anyway, but you need to be visible and engaged, and the faculty really want to see that. Next, and I remember, this is probably one piece of advice I wish I would have taken to heart early on, is recognize that the imposter syndrome is real. And by that, I mean, many of us think we're not as good as we really are. And I remember starting off this master's program at Northwestern. I'd come from this little private school in Oregon. I sat in a seminar with about 10 other of my English major colleagues, and they were coming from schools like Dartmouth, Brown, University of Pennsylvania, University of Southern California, and I thought, I am out of my league. I'm going to fail. I'm going to flunk out. I shouldn't be here. I went through the whole list for, about a couple weeks. And then pretty soon I just realized that my fellow graduate students, those students just like to hear themselves talk. And my undergraduate preparation had served me more than well in terms of my writing skills, my critical thinking, my ability to analyze, and probably my ability to keep my mouth shut and only talk at the right time. So that imposter syndrome, don't let that get you down at all. And I think the second to the last piece of advice, and this is why it's so great being in Boise and having the connection to what's available here at the university, is practice self-care. And it goes back to those same basic probably directions that you've heard before, is eat well, get sleep, and exercise. I mean, I think you've all been there where you can spend 5 hours of studying and you're not really into it, and you can spend 1 hour of studying when you are into it and get that much more out of it. So you know yourselves well and your biorhythms and all of that. So the self-care piece is really important, and I know that health service will emphasize that when it's their turn. And then last but not least, and this is all of us here at Boise State, and I'll go back and emphasize the importance of your faculty. Don't be afraid to ask for help. That's why they're here. I would always be a little hesitant with graduate students who never ask for anything, and oftentimes those were the grad students who probably were more challenged in whether it was writing or understanding the material or something like that. So those are just some quick thoughts, and I hope that maybe one or two of them resonated with you. So good luck with your programs. It will go by very quickly. I'm sorry about wearing the masks. I don't want to wear a mask. I believe we have to wear a mask. But you know this, some of you probably already know this, that the first COVID that came out in March of or hit a lot of us in spring of 2020, if you were in a group of people unmasked, it took about 15 seconds before it might have hit you. This variant D is 1 second. So that's why the large crowds, and even when you're vaccinated, of course, it's really important. And the sooner we can get rid of this, the sooner we can go back to creating whatever our new normal is going to be. So anyway, thank you for being at Boise State. We're delighted you're here. If I can do anything, my office is in the administration building on the second floor, student affairs. If you'd rather, the president's right next door. If you'd rather go in and visit with the president, I'll take you in. And has president already visited? She would, watching her or listening to her, she would visit with you. So anyway, have a great weekend too, and good luck with classes.